Welcome to the Hoopstrology podcast, brought to you by the Bayou Citian. My name is Jesus Acevedo Jr. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined by the one and only sports astrologer in the world, the Zodiac GM. What's going on, Zodiac?
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. We skipped last week. We keep having some schedule issues, but we are back this week. Heavily into the playoff second round. Some teams up for, I don't want to say elimination, but maybe some must-win games for them. But before we get into the NBA playoffs, Zodiac, I want to talk about the NBA draft. We just recently had the NBA draft lottery to see what teams the order, and our local hometown Houston Rockets got the number 3 pick. And every fan, every media, Houston media analyst, any Houston Rockets person is just thinking about all the different possibilities. Ain't that right, Zodiac?
Oh, yeah. So many things you could do with that number 3 pick. You can even trade. You can even pick up. I mean, there's so many talented players out there, and the Rockets are in such a great shape, condition, and to do well in this draft. I mean, this is something that they cannot miss at all. So,
I think it just depends on what they see, what they value, and their talent, and also one thing we've known about the Rockets GM, and I'm blanking out on his name right now, and I just feel bad. He's a Gemini like me. Rafael Stone. There you go. See, just but yeah, something he never feels pressure to make a deal. He's always, even when perhaps he should have, like the Eric Gordon trade. He maybe could have pulled it earlier, but he said, let me hold up. I know his value. So, but all that to say, I'm excited to see, out of the top 3, Hawks got the number 1 pick, obviously, and then the Washington Wizards. But I think the Rockets are the most interesting, just because of, if they make that move, that could change also other things, as we know. But the reason I bring up the mock draft, it's a mock draft, but is because you put out a synergy mock draft, first impressions, which essentially boils down to your pick. You put them on the team based on how the college players' NBA astrology sign fits with that team. And I want to just talk real quick, before we get into the NBA playoffs, about the top 3. For the Atlanta Hawks, you got Donovan Clingan, who's a Pisces. So you see him fitting in with this current team, right? Because this is taking into account this team, not any trades that are being happening right now as it stands. So you think Clingan, a Pisces, will be with the Hawks? And then Aries for Zachary Risacker with the Wizards, and then for the Rockets, Capricorn, Rob Dillingham. Does that improve both of those 3 teams substantially with these additions, just based on an astrology standpoint?
Yes, I do, in my opinion, and part of the reason why the first pick overall with the Hawks, I know Alex Sarr, he's been talked a lot about being a number 1 overall pick. He is a great pick. Don't get me wrong, but I just think overall with Donovan Clingan, looking at the Atlanta Hawks as a team, their head coach, that's one of the things I value. It's who's compatible to their head coach, along with their best players, Trae Young and Murray, of course, right? So I look at it more as a whole, right? So as a whole, as far as for synergy fit, the best overall, as far as for talent and everything else that goes along with it, I think Donovan Clingan fits better. And I should say better, but he's a great fit for that team. One, because you have a Scorpio, right? And Quinn Snyder, that's the head coach, right? And the thing with the Scorpio, Alex Sarr is a Taurus. I mean, yes, they do get along, but the thing is they're both fixed signs, right? And which is a good thing. But ideally, I think with the Scorpio, and having a mutable sign such as a Pisces, which is what Donovan Clingan is, I think it gives more leverage for a coach to kind of do more in synergy, open up the communication more, because Pisces tends to adapt pretty well. They're good followers. They have that flexibility. More willingness in a sense. Whereas a Taurus in nature, they're more consistent. They do get the job done, but the thing about it is that they tend to want to do it their way if they're really good at it, right? So the flexibility portion kind of goes away a little bit. But again, they're both very, very compatible. And the thing is, the way I looked at it, Clint Capella is already a Taurus. So
Right.
if you get Alex Sarr in there, you're getting the same synergy. Of course, Alex Sarr is the potential, might be a little bit more talented, of course, but you're almost getting an identical synergy with Alex Sarr if he was to replace Clint Capella, or even if ideally I would think they would put him at the 4, it would be even better. That way, that way they can utilize a 4-1 lineup along with Murray and Young. So that's also another thing to look at. But either or is really a toss up. I mean, they're both great players and they both fit.
I think it'll be interesting what happen. I think it'll start with how the Rockets decide to move that pick. Because also something we've heard is that this draft could be one of the not as strongest right in the past couple of years. But it's also hard to say that because you can't judge a draft until maybe 3-4 years into it. But
Yeah.
but that's all the draft talk you guys will get from us. You'll definitely have an episode we'll drop later when it's draft season. But right now, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. And actually, we're going to actually tease a little bit long and not even talk about the NBA playoffs. We're going to talk about some teams that are not even in the NBA playoffs. Well, one team made, and that was the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns made the NBA playoffs with the, all-star team, right, of Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. But they were bounced out of the NBA playoffs, swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves, up-and-coming to Minnesota Timberwolves. And they decided to make a change. So the Phoenix Suns decided to fire Frank Vogel after 1 year. So now he just gets to sit at home and collect, what is it, like 10, 20 million? I think I
Man,
heard
he's got it
something like
made.
that. So
He's got it
so
made.
man, if somebody's hiring for those kind of jobs to be fired after 1 year but still keep that money, I would definitely want to sign up. That sounds like a job I'll be down for. But
Yeah.
so they fired Frank Vogel, and the Suns are they've called on Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer, previously of the Milwaukee Bucks, NBA champion, Mike Budenholzer, coach. And I think just from a before we get into the astrology aspect of it, I think it's a good hire for the fact that this is a proven winner with multiple teams, right? With the Atlanta Hawks and with the Milwaukee Bucks. With the Atlanta Hawks, I remember that one season when they were going on a lot of win streaks. They were competing with the Golden State Warriors when the Golden State Warriors were in their first year. Both teams had a lot of good synergy, had a lot of good of the same play, fast play style, and that was Mike Budenholzer's team. Of course, we know what he did with the Bucks. But my concern with Mike Budenholzer is not so much him. I wonder how much of the roster is they have to still turn over, right? Because so much money is tied into Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. So that's what my concern is. If he can make use of the roster as is, but I'm confident in his coaching skills to somehow at least, make this team better than what they showed. Because look, they let me down, right? I had Devin Booker winning the MVP. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I like Mike Budenholzer. But now, how does he fit from an astrological point with this current team, right? We don't know what moves they're going to make, but currently as they are, how does he fit?
I think it's neutral. But to keep in mind, like if you notice, some of the success that Budenholzer, had was of teams that he was very compatible with. The 2015-16 Hawks, that one season that they just came out of nowhere, took the whole league by storm, won 60 games that year. Well, guess what? Was very compatible to Coach Bud, right? Horford, Gemini, Millsap, Aquarius, Carroll, Leo, Jeff Teague, Gemini, a starting core four, with their starting unit. And that was a season where, they didn't have an elite talent, but they had solid players
Yeah.
and they were all compatible. And guess what? That's another team that had excellent synergy, right? And of course, you already know with the Milwaukee Bucks, they won a championship. That whole squad was also compatible to Budenholzer. But the reason why I bring this up is that they just have to be cautious because he has all the accolades, right? But the synergy fit, that's something to keep an eye on. Because the one thing about this is that they have three superstars, right? Now, Kevin Durant is compatible to Budenholzer, right? Because Kevin Durant is a Libra, right? Budenholzer is a Leo. But the other two stars are opposite of him, right? So the thing is, it doesn't mean that's never going to work because you can find ways to work as long as your rotation is utilized the right way and as long as the whole team buys in to his schemes or game planning and everything else that goes along with it. So that's the reason why I mentioned it's a neutral because
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's I don't know. I don't know what's another word to say it, but it needs a lot of work to reconstruct for it to have the best energy overall. But then yet they do have all talent. They just need to be put in the right position to succeed.
Mm,
But that's the hard part, of
interesting.
course. And look what happened to Vogel, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, and you know, my concern, like I said, is I think it falls to the roster. You know, Frank Vogel's a good defensive coach, and we just didn't see much defense with this team, or at least not consistent defense.
But let
So
me let me
huh?
tell you one
Go
thing
ahead.
real quick. Now Budenholzer's a Leo, right, with the Gemini moon. Okay. Now, guess who else is a Leo Gemini moon? Ime Udoka, right?
Oh,
So,
that's right.
and they're very very good coaches. But the thing is, I mean, I feel like they're sort of in an identical situation, right? Of course, the Suns has a little bit more talent, experienced talent than the Rockets, but I feel like that's sort of kind of the synergy that you're going to get with the Phoenix Suns, similar to what the Rockets have in a
Mm,
sense, right? Um, so that's a challenge I think that Budenholzer is going to face, and I think throughout the season he's going to notice that, and this is one of those things again. It's going to take a lot of games to truly gel because they're going to realize, hey, something's not fitting right, something's just not going right, like it doesn't fit, like everything is off, and it might take them, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, however many games for them to truly gel, but we'll see how it goes.
wow, and you know, it has to be said, you know, Mike Budenholzer is a Mike Budenholzer. My apologies, Mike. Is a
Yeah.
disciple of Greg Popovich, so you know we know the kind of coach that Greg Popovich is. You know who's a disciple of Mike Budenholzer? Mike Budenholzer. Jesus Christ, Mike Budenholzer. Mike, my bad. Mike, next time you're here, Houston, I'll take you out to drink. First drinks on me, Mike Budenholzer. Uh, his disciple was recently named, one of his disciples was recently named Charlie Hornets head coach, and that's Charles Lee. Now, I will admit, I don't know much about Mr. Lee. I know he's, you know, as I was informing myself on him, I learned that he's a very accomplished assistant coach with stops in Boston and Boston, where he's at currently right now, but also in Atlanta and Milwaukee with Mike Budenholzer. So I know you tweeted out when the announcement was made about how he could fit, and I think one of the things you said was you compared him to Miami Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra, and that they're trendsetters. Also, I think you mentioned Chris Finch, another Scorpio, that they're these kind of coaches. They can lay a foundation to change a trend of a franchise and like set a foundation. You know, can you expand on that and how you think Charles Lee will help the Charlie Hornets?
Well, the thing is, he's a Scorpio with Sagittarius moon, which ironically is the same exact Sun Moon combination as Eric Spoelstra, right? So the thing with the fixed signs such as a Scorpio, same things with goes with Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, is that they're constant. Just think of that constant, but they're constant in energy, they're constant in foundation, they're sort of immovable, right? But the great thing about that is that they're sort of what I like to call the culture setters of any organization. You
Mhm.
put a fixed sign to lead an organization. That's one of their major traits that they can bring, and that's a great thing because you want stability, right? And that's a very very
Yeah.
important thing. So once you have that stability in place, then everything sort of kind of aligns accordingly, right? So the Hornets are a young team, but as I mentioned this before, Hornets are dominant with a lot of fire signs. LaMelo Ball's a Leo, Miles Bridges, depending if he signs with them or not, he's an Aries. Brandon Miller's a Sagittarius. There's a lot of fires energy in there. Grant Williams a Sagittarius, right? Which is all opposite of what Scorpio at the water sign
Yeah.
of Charles Lee is, right? So that's a challenge that I see right away. But the thing about it is they're a young team, right? And also Charles Lee's a first time head coach. So I'm curious to see how that's going to balance out. And the way I see it, if they really want to truly want to make this work, patience is the key. I don't anticipate them, being a top team or even mid team right off the bat. I think it's going to take a lot of time for them to truly gel and find some sort of like strength in their team DNA in a sense, right? So what their identity is, right? So there is going to be a challenge the way I see it because of that roadblock, that split between the opposite of energy. But the thing about it is, the Hornets do have a strong coach that can set the tone for years to come, right? So the thing is, the players do have to buy into the system, and then see how everything falls into place, moving forward. So
Hmm.
key players. I mean, Brandon Miller is a very key player to see how that connection goes, because Brandon Miller, he's a Sagittarius with Cancer Moon, so they will have some sort of type of connection together because of the Sagittarius Moon from Charles Lee, right? So they will
Yeah.
have a connection there, but is it strong enough for other teammates to follow what Brandon Miller's synergy is would be with Charles Lee to kind of expand, in an overall team sense.
Yeah, I think it's uh what stuck out to me was you said like a Eric Spoelstra where gonna be able to set the foundation too. So I think that's what this team needs. They're young. Charlotte Hornets, a young team, talented, right? Let's not forget a lot of talent
Yeah.
on this team. So they're not that far removed from the playing tournament, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Was it like 2 years ago? I think they made the playing tournament 2.5 years ago. So
Yeah.
2.5, 2, 3 years ago. So there's talent. I know they made some changes, and look, they even made a run this season. So but we'll see how they do. But now that we talked about the hirings, I think it's time we get into the NBA playoffs. And where we are right now is you people are listening to this episode on Tuesday, and tonight's games are two good ones. So we're gonna start backwards, right? We're gonna start with the T-Wolves and the Nuggets. This has been a series that's currently 2-2, where no home team has won a game. The Wolves came out, smoked the Denver Nuggets. Weed is legal in Colorado, Minnesota smoked the Denver Nuggets really good. They I want to say they slapped them around, woke them up, and I think it was just what Denver needed, which is kind of odd to say, right? Of a champion, the champion needed to be woken up, but they needed that reminder, right? Some people were actually writing them off. There were some, media pundits that said that the series was over, and what Denver head coach did, he used that and he gave it to the players for fuel. And they came out game 3, game 4, and just game 3, Wolves had no chance. Like not even from the get go. From when the ball was tossed up, it was over. Nuggets were all over them. I don't think they Minnesota even got like while they were figuring out that the game had started, they were already down like 20 points, and
That
I
was
think
tough.
it was tough. Even Anthony Edwards said after the game, he's like, that was on me. And that's one thing I like about Anthony Edwards. He takes the blame. He said, it's all on me. I have to set the energy, and I came in with no energy. And the reason why is he couldn't get his energy started. The Nuggets came in, energy was already at 100. So Wolves could never build up their energy to get there. But so 2-2. Here's what I'm gonna say. I said this before the series started, was that this might be the Denver Nuggets' toughest series during these playoffs, including the finals. So far, I've been half true, right? Because the first 2 games were the toughest,
You've done
but
a
now that
really
it's
good
2,
job with these predictions, by the way.
just so far, right? But it's 2-2 right now. So I don't know. Right now, my next prediction is I think Denver wins game 3. I think Minnesota wins game 6, and then Denver gets them in game 7. And I think it's a sad loss for the Minnesota Timberwolves, but I think one they're going to build on. I mean, this is really their true first playoff experience with Anthony Edwards. I mean, he's been one of the stars, but I think a loss in game 7 to the defending champions is not a bad way to go. But that's what I think is going to happen. But how do you see it playing out from an astrological point? Or how have you seen this play out so far?
Well, I had anticipated a comeback of some sort, or some sort of competitiveness with the Denver Nuggets. The reason why, because if you take a step back, look at the big picture, the macros, right? Like the macro level of analyzing a team. The Denver Nuggets, part of the reason why they are successful is because of their quality, their overall quality trait. They have a whole bunch of mutable signs. What does that mean, right? So mutable signs have the ability to adapt and are flexible, right? And adjust, right?
Mm.
They were down 0-2. They got a whooping, right? So I had anticipated them to actually adjust and make some sort of adjustments against the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, yeah. Wait, who are they playing? My mind's going blank right now. The
Nuggets and T-Wolves.
Nuggets and T-Wolves. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Dallas already. But okay, so you're looking at a whole bunch, and the reason why, because who's the influence of that team? You got the head coach, Mike
Mm,
Maloney's a Virgo,
my
mutable
bro.
sign. Who's their 2 best players? 3 best players, matter of fact. You got Jokic, Pisces, mutable signs. You got Murray, also a Pisces mutable sign, and also Gordon, who is a Virgo mutable sign. So you have a strong influence of a lot of mutable qualities in that, which spells a lot of adaptability and ability to adjust, right? So coming into game 3, I did anticipate some sort of change, and they made it happen. Now you go on the other end. You look at the T-Wolves. Look at their overall, the macro of how the team is structured, right? So they're more fixed dominant in a sense. You got Coach Finch, he's a Scorpio. You have Leo and Anthony Edwards, and you also have Towns, who's a Scorpio, right? So those are like, I guess, the influential pieces of that makes up that team. Of course, Rudy Gobert is a Cancer, is a Cardinal sign, but I think it's more heavier on the fixed side, right? What does that mean? Consistency. So they're very, very consistency, but the part of that consistency is they're also predictable. So that's the challenge that they're gonna have to face, is that Denver has sort of kind of figured them out in a sense, right? Because it's almost predictable. So they've adjusted. Now the thing about what the T-Wolves, can they counter adjust? That's a big question. That's a big question, because the influence of that team, you have a fixed dominant head coach who's going to bring out his game plan. Similar, just think about how like Coach Darvin Ham is. I mean, you see the fans and everyone talks about, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. But in my mind, the back of my mind, I'm saying, hey, look, he's a double fixed sign. He's not going to change his ways. There's good and bad. There's good and bad to that, of course, right? To any level. But as far as the series, I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out, if they will have that ability to adapt, if they do. So I feel like that's how. Of course, you do need a little luck too. Home court advantage, everything else falls into place too. I mean, so many other factors. T-Wolves can win the series. Nuggets can win the series as well, but that's just the way I see it. Adaptability versus stability. So that's where that's the break even right there. Who's gonna win?
So and all that, which is very informative. I don't think you made a pick, and we need you to make a pick, sir. Who do you think is going to win this series?
I think Nuggets. I think Nuggets eventually. I think Nuggets have them exactly where they want them, and I think they figured them out. They couldn't counter on game 4, and I think it's to the point where the T-Wolves are like, oh man, wow, it didn't work. It didn't work. And I think Nuggets have their number right now. That's just my opinion. So
I think the worst thing that could have happened was to every other team was that the Denver Nuggets got smacked around, because that, like I said, that woke them up.
Yeah.
They're like, and I think Coach Malone got into him, and he said that's not how championships act. That's not how championship teams play. Go ahead.
Another thing to look at. Look, a couple years back, they were down 2 series, 1-3, and they came back and won both those series several years back. And that's again part of that ability to adjust, right? They can get a whipping, but as long as you can come back with a game plan that can counter everything else that went wrong, then you're doing something right? So that's going to be a tough team to beat, the Denver Nuggets. So, and plus they have the talent to do it as well, and we'll see.
Yeah, that's why I think this T-Wolves will be the toughest. I think I agree, Nuggets will win, so they win. And then looks like Dallas is gonna get by OKC. I know they were playing right now, right? What's the latest score? I know you were looking at the Dallas game. Probably that's what you mentioned, Dallas.
Yeah, exactly. So Dallas is up by 9 right now in halftime.
At the half, I think I see a lot of OKC. Sorry, a lot of Nuggets. I'm sorry, a lot of T-Wolves in this, and OKC. A lot of similarities in that. I think them getting to this round is a huge win for their franchises and where they're at right now. And I think they're going to use this to springboard to bigger playoff success in the years to come. I think OKC is getting a lesson from Dallas right now. This series will probably be Dallas 5, maybe 6 games. And just like this, Minnesota, I think they're getting a lesson in what it takes to beat teams of the caliber of Denver. Because it's not just that Denver is a good team, right? There's so many good teams around the league. And during the regular season, anybody can beat anybody. But in the playoffs, when things get tighter, when reps swallow their whistles, you have to have more. You have to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and you have to have a plan for whatever the opponent is planning for you. Like you said, that counter. And that's what we've seen Denver do. Like you said, they've been mutual enough they've counter how the T-Wolves were playing them. And, I love the T-Wolves because they play hard defense. And, I wouldn't put it past Denver if Denver sent tape to the league about all the tough fouls that Denver was complaining about that they felt the
Mhm.
Minnesota Timberwolves were being threw up. It would not surprise me. They won't come out and say it because real gangsters move in silence.
Right.
Real G's move in silence. But I would not put it past it if they did that. They're like, hey, because you look
Yeah.
at the foul disparity between the first two games, how they were calling game 3 and 4, especially game 3, very, very different, But so I think we both say Nuggets I say Nuggets in 7. You think Nuggets in 7, or you think they get it done in 6?
I don't know. It's gonna be tough, but I just feel like the Nuggets are gonna win. I would say 7. Because yeah, the
Yeah,
Minnesota Timberwolves are they're a good team. I mean, Edwards can come out and just be on fire the next game and just dominate by himself, and he could win a
by
game by
himself.
himself. That's how
Yeah,
good he is.
that's how good he is.
So yeah, it's a scary team there.
That's good. You know who else could go off and just has been going off this NBA season has been Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks. He hit what, was it 4 or 5 playoff games in a row with more than 40 points? He's been brutal. Just teams. It's funny you think about Dallas Mavericks has now twice traded 2 point guards, and those point guards have gone on to become to blossom even more. Right? They did it with Steve Nash, who went on to win 2 MVPs, and now
Oh, you're
Jalen
right.
Brunson, who was
Good
what, a top
point.
3 MVP vote getter, right? Top 3,
Good
top 4,
point. And they were both compatible to their star players at that time, like Aquarius and
right?
Gemini with Dirk and Steve Nash, and then Brunson and Doncic. You're right. Wow,
So
good point. That was
so
a good point.
but Jalen Brunson has his New York Knicks tied with the Indiana Pacers 2-2. Now, this is a series, unlike the previous one, is that no road team has won a game. Both home teams have, they've defended home court. And I have to say, so far the second round, this has been the best series. I feel like every game,
You're
minus
right.
the last one, game 4 was a little bit more of a blowout edge. But oh my God, game 1, 2, game 1 and 2 were instant classics. Instant classic. I think game 1 for sure was just an instant classic where the Knicks, you look at it and you're like, how did they win this game? When you look at saw how many points Indiana was up by. But my only concern, so that with this series is in New York should win this series, but my concern is the injuries to the New York Knicks. I
Yeah.
wonder if that will prevent them from getting ahead and beating Indiana, or if that'll be the edge that pushes Indiana forward. Because look, and there's no shade to Indiana. Indiana's a hell of a team, hell of a young team. That's why they're 2-2.
You're
But
right.
I think for the long run, I think New York Knicks should win the series. But I think that's my concern. Zodiac is the injuries to the New York Knicks, but what can you tell us about this series, and how have you seen it played out based from an astrological standpoint?
I think the Knicks have the best overall synergy along with the Denver Nuggets overall. It left with the teams left in
Mm.
the playoffs. The thing is with the Knicks, they're depleted. They have a whole bunch of injuries, and it's unfortunate. And look what happened on, was it game 3, right? Or was it game 3 or game 4? I can't remember exactly, where the Knicks had a big lead and then they ended up losing with was it Nemhard, I believe, or I can't remember who made that
Game 3.
shot.
Yeah, game
Was it game
3.
3, right? They ended up making a shot and a couple missed layups from the Knicks. It took them that much to actually beat at that time a depleted Knicks team. They didn't have
Right,
Anunoby, and then
right.
it's like they barely won that game. And of course, the next game was a blowout, right? But I don't know. I still see the Knicks putting up a very, very strong fight, and I still give them a slight edge. The thing about the Indiana Pacers is that they're sort of inconsistent the way I see. They could be really, really good or really, really bad, depending on who's who catches fire, or if they have and of course with Halliburton, they definitely need him to do well. But I feel like sometimes he does good, sometimes he does bad. Um, but if he does good, and then the rest of the team follows through with his energy, I think they can actually, you know, beat the Knicks. I mean,
Mm.
but we'll see. It's a really, really tough series. But the only thing is that the injuries plays a huge factor in this. And for the most part, aside from Mathurin on the Indiana Pacers side, I mean they're healthy, but you have a whole bunch of injuries coming from the Knicks side as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think Knicks. I think Knicks in the end squeeze by Indiana unless Jalen Brunson doesn't play. That's their saving grace, right? Because and even
Yeah.
he's hobbled up too. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know. And then I also think about it from a fan perspective, right? Let me analyze this game from a fan perspective. Like, what will make a better Eastern Conference Finals? The Boston Celtics
Ooh.
against the hobbled New York Knicks, or the Boston Celtics against the young up and coming Indiana Pacers? Like, what would be
Ooh.
better to watch, right? From that point of view.
In a sense,
But
both. In a sense, both. I mean, even though the Knicks are hobbled, I mean, it makes a great storyline as well. Like it's like sort of like a Cinderella story. Hey, you got this Knicks
they're
team that's
fighters.
injured,
They're
and they're
fighters. Yeah.
fighters, and they go into it goes both ways. And in the Pacers, they are young and up and coming. I mean, this team sort of reminds me of I don't know if you remember, like I had the Sacramento Kings back in the day.
Yes.
With Bibby
Mike,
Weber, that
baby,
squad.
yeah, Weber,
They
yeah.
sort of remind me of something like that
Mm,
because the way they run their offense, they're sort of run and gun in a
yeah,
sense. But
yeah,
that's what I kind of get out of them.
yeah. Well, there you go. Well, I say we both say the Knicks. I think this series might also go 7. I think no matter which way, I think it'll go 7. I think New York wins it at home in 7. I think right now Knicks will gonna win Game 5. Indiana wins Game 6, and the Knicks will get it in Game 7.
Is
So no broke
Anunoby
team.
coming back by any chance? I haven't even. I wonder if
Ooh,
he is.
that's.
But I'll check it out.
We can ask our friend Google right now and get the answer. He is out for Game 5 for sure, but they don't say.
Oh,
It doesn't
wow.
sound promising, so he could be out for. Yeah, see, that's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be tough, But the Knicks are coached by Tom Thibodeau, and Tom Thibodeau, he's a tough nosed coach. So his players play tough.
And real quick, and the reason why I mentioned Anunoby, he's so important to this whole synergy, making it more complete. Because him being a Cancer, he's the only Cardinal signed in that starting 5 that and back again, Cardinal, fixed, mutable. They had that with in the starting 5, but you remove the Cardinal sign in there, they're still compatible, yes,
Right.
but it depletes that actual leader energy, and that's what Anunoby is. He brings that emotional leadership to that team. So that's what they're lacking, but they are still compatible though. So,
Got it. Well, there you go. We'll see how these two series play out, and we'll see how these coaches that we talked about, how they do in their first season. That is the 20th episode of Hoopstrology. Zodiac GM, any final words?
Hey, follow us on Twitter X at the Zodiac GM and also Hoopstrology.
And follow the Bayou Cityan, and follow me, Jesus_Acevedo Jr. And don't forget to subscribe. See ya.